Hi, I'm Professor Zubair Jahangir and I'm your faculty for Law and Finance. I have taught finance in the Bombay Stock Exchange and also at the CS final level in the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. I've also taught finance and law in certain other reputed institutions at the final level. So today, the topic of the day is mutual funds and the entire background about the stock markets. Just before I start, a small little disclaimer that in the course of the video, I will be sharing certain financial tips, principles and disciplines. Before making any investments, you need to consult your own investment advisor and make your own independent research. Having said that, it's time we begin about understanding mutual funds and the stock markets in general. Let's say you had rupees 100 in 2010. Let's look at its value in different investment avenues. Let's say if you were holding cash and have not invested anywhere, the value of 100 would be 50 rupees today. This is because of inflation. Since the money value is there, it depreciates with time, reduces with time. So holding cash, you might feel that you're holding 100 rupees even today, but the cost of living and the things around you become expensive, which reduces your ability and purchasing power. Second, if the most common investment decision that people do is that they make a FD. Making an FD would have helped you increase your value to 225, almost doubling up over the period of time, which is a good hedge against inflation. However, does FD exceed the inflation and can help you become rich is something which we will see once we do the analysis. Third, if you had invested in the stock market, Nifty, your value would have tripled. If you had invested in the stock share price of HDFC Bank, your value would have become 108, that's 8 times. So it can clearly be said that HDFC Bank has outperformed Nifty. If you were holding gold, you had invested in gold, the value of it would have been 290. So it's better than FD, but not as good as the stock market. Next, if you were holding shares of an international company like Apple, your value would have become 1,850. In the video, if I will be telling you all how to invest even in international companies. So you just have to wait. I will show you how you can get yourself invested and get the best benefits of investing in certain companies which are listed in other countries. Now, first bringing me to each investment avenue, let's talk about cash. Why did the value of rupees 100 kept cash that time? If I'm holding it today, its value would have been only 50. The reason is your things around you would become more expensive. If let's say petrol, today with 100 rupees you can buy 1 liter petrol. However, with that 100 rupees, after 10 years you think you will get 1 liter petrol? Answer is no, you might only get half a liter petrol with 100 rupees. That means your value of your money has become half. So people don't realize just keeping money in the bank, its value is depreciating because of inflation. So it's many times said that inflation is a silent tax or silent killer, which many people don't know. And therefore making some kind of investment is necessary. Now let's say the most common investment avenue which you, your friends, your family must be doing is an FD. Let's compare FD, making an FD in HDFC Bank, as well at the same time investing the same amount in the share price of HDFC. Let's see what's the scenario. Let's say how is it investing in HDFC, making an FD in HDFC Bank and investing in HDFC stock. So let's say in 19 Jan 2000, if you had 1 lakh rupees and you had made an FD at the rate of 14%, which is unrealistic because the FD rate is somewhere around 7%, 5%. but still we have taken as the highest ever FD rate. Your 1 lakh rupees would have grown on to become 18 lakhs on 23rd September 2021. Okay, so 1 lakh grows on to become 18 lakhs. The shares, if you had invested in the shares worth 1 lakh rupees, its value would have become 86 lakhs. So somewhere we can say that investing in HDFC shares was much better. Now coming to the FD and understanding that is FD going to make you rich or it is just a method to match to the inflation levels. Let's see. Now if you take a more practical view, the FD rate somewhere is around 5 to 7%. Okay. So I'm taking as the market scenario. Let's say the FD rate is 5%. When you get a 5.5% return, you know that if you fall under the tax slabs, in the normal tax slab is 30% tax. So you would be taxed 30%. So in hand is even lesser because certain amount is going to the government. So the rate is only 3.85% after tax. So after tax return is only 3.85. Many people just see the return, but what about the tax and then after tax return? It's 3.85. Let's say if the inflation rate is 7%, then are you making a gain or you're making a real loss? Is it a real return? Is it a positive return or a negative return? It's a negative return. So again, we can conclude FD might help you to match to inflation, but inflation rate goes much higher. Then the question comes up that even FD is not going to make me rich and is not going to outgrow inflation. Then how do I grow my money? So the answer is stock markets. We've seen stock markets, whether it be Nifty, whether it be the certain companies in Nifty, or seeing international stock markets. They are giving you higher rate of return. But however, you have to remember, higher the return, higher the risk. So therefore, keeping yourself invested in a risk managed environment is very important. Okay, so you have to manage your risk as well. Now, some people do not invest in the stock markets at all, saying that it is risky, it is gambling, it is XYZ, and don't invest into the stock markets. What is your opinion? Let me know. Do you think investing in stock markets is extremely risky? So let me take you through certain stats. Now this is the stats that we are going to see. Okay, I'm taking you through the entire journey of the stock market. Okay, from the time it began till the present date. So let's say the stock markets had started in around 1990. That time Sensex had crossed 1000 points, and today the Sensex has crossed over 50,000, 60,000 points. So can I say in the long run, market has gone up. It has given you a higher rate of return. Your 1,000 rupees has become 60,000 rupees because stock markets is somewhere around over 60,000 now. Now some people believe it's risky. So let's see. The big scam, the Harshad Mehta scam. If we just go to see the Harshad Mehta scam, it was somewhere in 1992. Okay. So it fell this much. But then again the market rose. Then we had certain blast. There was a bomb blast in the BSE, because of which again the stock markets fell. But with time it came up again. Okay. Then we had a drop in the stock markets. Okay, in 2008 with the Satyam scam. Okay, and we had certain other scams as well. Okay, when the Sensex crashed. However, after that, again the market rose, and today it's up here. So if we see in the longer run, the market is not that risky. And if I just take you through the Sensex chart from the stock exchange, okay, we're going to see whether it's really risky or it's just hype. Now this is the return. Now this is the Sensex, okay, it's 60,000 today. Now we're going to see the max, the chart. What do you think? Do you think it is showing that the Sensex is anywhere risky? It's just going up in the longer run. So there have been falls, no doubt. Now in 2007-8, if you go to see, okay, it was one of the biggest crashes. We had the Lehman Brothers, fall, the global recession, where someone was invested in 2007 when the stock market was 20,000, it crashed to 10,000. Half, everybody's portfolio became half. Okay, and at least half, because if you must have invested in some stocks, it could have gone much lower. So here people thought that its entire thing is a scam, etc. Lehman Brothers crash. But later what happened? Market took time to recover. So it came back to the 20,000 level the very next year, in 3 years, you could say. So obviously investing for longer term seems a better off gamble. Okay. So Sensex has hit 60,000 also now. So 60,000 to 21. And if you see the trend, it's always an uptrend, the stock markets. So therefore longer durations could be a beneficial figure. But if you just see in shorter durations, you might feel that the markets have crashed. But it actually goes up. Even this was the phase 2020 for COVID-19 went down, but it had a V-shaped recovery. So therefore markets are not necessarily that bad as you see it. It's always going in the uptrend in the longer run. So it's always said by all the stock market experts that if you're investing in the stock markets, invest for longer durations and invest the money which you can afford to lose. Okay, so if we see why invest for long term, another important financial principle which is there, that invest for long term. Now why? Let's see. The percentage of time investors lost the money, we are comparing it. So a person who has invested for only 1 month, around 40% of the people have lost their money. But if you invested for 1 year, 30% of the people have lost. So as the time horizon increases, the number of people losing the money, this is the chart for the number of people that have lost the money, reduces. And those who have invested for 20 years and more, only 0.1% of the people have lost the money. So therefore so these are the people who have lost money in stock market, and this is the time. So the longer the time duration, we can simply conclude that there are lesser number of people who have lost the money, because we saw that the graph in longer trend goes higher. Now if we see you had invested in certain stocks, what would be its value today? So let's say if you had invested 25 years ago, we are talking of long duration and what kind of return the stock markets can give you, which no other investment avenue can give you. So firstly, if you had invested in Infosys, one of my favorite stocks and also the favorite stocks of all mutual funds. If you had invested 10,000 rupees in 25 years ago, today its value would be 3 crore rupees, 2.97 CR. If you had invested again in the evergreen stock Eicher Motors, that time you would invested 10,000, its value today would be 2 crore rupees. If you had invested in Shree Cement, 10,000 worth investment would have been 2 crores. So we can see the gain that stock markets can give you in the longer run. Let's talk about Wipro. If you had invested 10,000 rupees in Wipro in 1980, you would have more than 1,200 crores today. Unbelievable return. Imagine having 10,000 rupees invested in 1980, you would have 12,000 crores today. Why is that? It's very simple, because Wipro kept giving bonuses, splits, dividends, etc. So if you have bought one share, now this is very, very interesting, okay? Or the Wipro stock market success story. If you had bought one share during Wipro IPO for rupees 100, now you would have 2,56,000 shares. One share has broken down, split, then those have further split, given bonuses, etc. You would have automatically 2,56,000 shares, which value is insane today. I think it is how much? 8 crores 90 lakhs. So your 100 rupees is becoming 8 crores. Crazy return. And let's not forget the dividend also annually of 2,56,000. Now, can you tell me one very famous investor in the stock market? Can you tell me any famous investor in the stock market? In the comment below. Now, obviously, you must have said Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Ramdev Agarwal, etc. There are many of them. Poranju. But have you heard of Muhammad Anwar Ahmed? If I tell you he's one of the most successful investors, have you heard of Muhammad Anwar Ahmed? So go on Google, YouTube, check his success story. He is known to be a millionaire by long-term investment, and he's one of the persons who had invested in the Wipro IPO. He was a farmer. And his entire story is there. And he had invested his money in Wipro. And today his shares are worth 1,500 crore rupees. Okay. So this is a secret to wealth creation, we can say, is long-term investing in good stocks. Even if you see for Infosys, if you had bought 100 shares, if you had bought 100 shares at IPO in 1994 for rupees 9,500, then in 2021 you would have so many shares worth this much value. So can I say that rupees 9,500 is growing on to become, this is how much? Rupees 15 crores plus annual dividends of 22 lakhs. This is the power of long-term investments. So Warren Buffett has said that you have to find a way to earn while you sleep. Another stock, if I like to take you through, is Honeywell Automation, one of the evergreen stocks with extremely strong fundamentals. See the share price from 96, it has gone to 40,175. This is one of the most expensive stocks to buy today. If you had invested 1 lakh rupees in Honeywell Automation, it would be 4 crores today. This story goes on with many stocks. If you had invested 10,000 in Asian Paints, it would have been approximately 1 CR today. Same for HDFC Bank, Britannia, MRF, Bosch, one of my favorite companies, Amraja Battery, Shree Cements, Dr. Reddy. Okay. So like these, there are multiple stocks which if we would have invested then, we would have been billionaires today. So can you tell me in the comment section certain multi-baggers which you feel which would be the future multi-baggers? Okay, some things like today. So identifying these kind of stocks and companies requires a lot of analysis, expertise, and huge amount of research. So I'm waiting to read some of the comments, okay, where you are going to show me multi-bagger stocks which could be in the next 20 years, the Wipro, Infosys, etc. Now, investing today in Indian stock markets. The stock markets today of India are extremely bullish, and all the investors and big houses are bullish on India. Goldman Sachs says that India could surpass UK as the 5th largest stock market in the world by 2024. Now, even Rakesh Jhunjhunwala says that the stock markets will double. There are multiple, analysts who are saying that the markets will double. Now, question is, if you want to start your journey today, how do you go ahead? So, how to invest in the share market today? Now, this video is for beginners in the stock markets who don't have much knowledge, and I will provide you some guidance and insights which will help you in making your investment decisions. Firstly, how to analyze your stocks. So, analysis of stocks is a technical matter. However, there are two basic methods to analyze any stock. One is your fundamental analysis and second is your technical analysis. Fundamental analysis is studying the company as a whole. The company, its background, its management, its conditions, the business. However, technical analysis are concerned with the past trend of the price, and accordingly they could detect the future trend. So it consists of studying moving averages, charts, various indicators, oscillators, etc. So if I talk about fundamental analysis, studying the company, and most of the long-term investors want to do both kind of analysis. They choose a company with good fundamentals and see the technicals on when to invest. For example, HDFC Bank has very good fundamentals, but should you buy the price which is available at today? So getting at the good price is equally important, and to know that at what price it will bounce back, the technical analysis will help you. So fundamental analysis is studying about the background of the company. So if I just take you through fundamental analysis of HDFC Bank, so you would first see what sector it is in. You would see the background of the company, that it is one of the private banks in India. You would see what all services and segments they are operating in. So they are operating in wholesale segment. My wholesale segment is catering to big, large corporates. They are catering to retail investors like you and me, individuals, and they also handle treasury management. Treasury is like for the government. They can act as a banker in certain aspects. For certain government bodies, they act like bankers. And also treasury includes the foreign market, foreign exchange. If you want to buy dollars, euros, yen, etc., you can go to HDFC Bank and buy them. So they are these kind of services that they are operating. You would go ahead and check their fundamentals. If you want to see fundamentals, the most important fundamentals are the finances. How well are they? The numbers. Any investor would check the numbers of the company. That what is their total assets for the bank, what is the interest earned, and what is the net profits. So if I see in 2019 the total assets are increasing, that's a good sign. Again, if I see the interest earned is increasing, again a good sign. And if I see the net profit of the company is also increasing. So all of this suggests that the company is good to buy. The next, if we look at the different numbers and figures, that what is the market cap of the company, who are the promoters, what are their holdings. The more the promoter holding, it gives much more sense of confidence to the investors that the promoters have the skin in the game. That is, they have their stake. They themselves are invested. So you know that they would take all the necessary steps and measures to make it a success. You would see the return on capital employed, certain PE ratios, return on equity, net, the NPA, the profit growth rate. These are all the indicators to decide the fundamentals of a company. Even for banks, you also see the CASA ratio. Okay. If you go for Infosys and you want to do a fundamental analysis of the Infosys, you would go again and see all the background. Let's say if I want to see the net profit after tax, you tell me, looking at the graph and at the net profit of the company, would you want to invest in Infosys? Yes or no? In 2016, this was the net profit, then it increased, then it further increased, had a dip, but then it increased, then again it increased in 2021. What do you think? Does the company have good fundamentals? Answer is yes. So again, investing in Infosys would be a good decision considering the growth rate. Again, if I take in Asian Paints, you're seeing the revenue and you're seeing the net profit. So the operating profit is also increasing and the revenue is also considerably increasing over the period of time. Therefore, Asian Paints, people love investing in Asian Paints and consider it to be a evergreen stock. Now, according to Warren Buffett, he said that you should always invest in stocks with good moats. Now, what is a moat? A moat is a water body surrounding a castle. So this is a castle, represents the company, and everything surrounding the company is called as a moat, which stops attackers. So you could have a waterway, in castles, when you try to attack a castle, to protect it, they have a moat made. It could have, various protection ways. Same way, he's saying that companies with having good protection from attackers is very, very good. So they need to have a good moat, a good USP, a good brand value, etc. This moat could be quality, low cost, brand value, after sales service, etc., which the attackers will find it very difficult. Attackers here mean the competition will find it very difficult to replicate. So if we talk about companies having good moats or good USPs and good standing in the market, again we've seen Asian Paints, you have Shree Cement, all of this, D-Mart, Pidilite, Maruti Suzuki, Bajaj Finserv, etc. good moats, so therefore can be said to be good, fundamentally good stocks. Now, some people, in order to find good fundamentals, prefer going in monopoly stocks. Monopoly stocks means what? If I tell you they have they dominate the segment. For example, if I tell you any kind of adhesive, so for you it will click Fevicol. So 82% is held by Pidilite. If I tell you about railways, then IRCTC has 100% market share in the rail network. Same way, if I talk about cigarettes, ITC has this. So these are all considered to be monopoly stocks. Generally, since they have a monopoly in the market or a brand value recall, it becomes very difficult for a competitor to come in. Okay, so let's take another monopoly stock. If I tell you for paints, which will it click? Automatically, most of you all will say Asian Paints. Okay, same way, if I tell you, if you want to find a company where you can go and get a job search, where can I go and I want to search a job, or an employer wants to hire someone, where would you tell them to go? You tell them to Naukri.com, yes or no? Naukri.com also has around 70% of the market share. Its name is InfoEdge. Also a fundamentally good stock, a monopoly stock. Zinc, Hindustan Zinc has 77% control in the market. So therefore, going for investment fundamental analysis, you need to check the net profit, profit margin, return on equity, PB ratio, that is your price to the book value, and the PE ratio. Now, without knowing any of this or doing any of these kind of analysis, many invest into the stock market. You think that is a wise decision to make? Why did I bring all these technical jargons for you? To know that these are the things that you need to check, and many people who without checking invest into the stock market. So obviously the chances of them making profit reduces. Let's go to the second part, technical analysis. Let's see whether you before investing have done fundamental or either technical analysis, or whether you've done both. Now, technical analysis is about graphs and charts mainly. So this is a various charts, like you can have head and shoulder pattern, you can have a rectangle, you can have the flag, which is one of my favorite investment. This is the double top, double bottom. Now you need to know this before investing into the stock markets. Then comes a different segment, which is your derivative segment. Now derivative segment is a high risk, high profit scenario. In derivatives, further we have futures, we have options. In options we have call options, and then we have put options. I'm telling you this so that you know the entire stock market as a whole, and you understand that it is a study by itself. You need to sit, and like how you have for your law, you must have done LLB 5 years, then you can allow to practice. If you wanted to become a doctor, you have to study for so many years MBBS, and then you can practice. Same way for an engineer. But for stock markets, people just land up investing and trading, and therefore one of the reasons why they lose the money. So then in the stock market, another comes commodity market. Commodity markets could be your gold, silver, oil, crude oil, aluminium, all this, agro commodities such as wheat, rice. You can trade in all of this. Now I trade in and invest continually, frequently in all of this, including the derivatives. So I'll be just taking you through so that you come to know that whenever someone is making profit in the market, there is a kind of a research that they make before doing it. Only then you could say that they would, probably make profit. So let's say this is the flag pattern of flagpole. This is a flagpole, and then once it goes beyond the pole, this is the phase where it is called as a breakout, and a person should invest into the stock. So investing in natural gas, okay, so I had figured out this pattern, a bullish flag made. Can I say this is the pole and this is the flag? Okay, this is the flag, this is the flagpole, and this was the bullish breakout which went higher. Okay, so similar. Can you see this? Isn't this very similar? So this was one of the trades that we had made, and we made profit on it. So the profit could be made on basis of understanding certain flags. Okay, so this was natural gas. Natural gas is a commodity, and we've dealt it commodity futures. Also in zinc I had traded. Then coming to another one, copper. So now I was trading in copper. Now copper, again, if you see the graph, now you should know support and resistance, that it had its support, it had its resistance at this level. Whenever it breaks this, it is tend to go at this level. Okay, so this is what we had predicted, that it would go break this, and it went up, and that's exactly what had happened. So it had a breakout even in zinc. Now you tell me from the graph, what do you think in zinc future? Now this is, I was trading in zinc. Now this was the graph. What do you think, looking at this figure, what will happen to the price of zinc? It would go from there, it would go higher, or it would go lower. So this is what it was expected, that it would go up touching here. Okay, at the volumes that it was being traded, and that's how we made profit, not only in copper but also in zinc. Okay, so it takes a lot of analysis and reading in the stock markets to make money. Many a times people are actually giving you advice without even trading or having any knowledge about the stock markets. The next I will take you through silver. Okay, when I had made profit in silver and gold. Now this was, there is certain inventory data that comes out. Okay, inventory data. So at 6 p.m. the data was out, and at 6 p.m. dot I got the message. I was updated with the message. Okay, and I took my decision. Data was positive for bullions, and this is what the graph went like. Okay, moment the data came out, it came out bullish for not only gold but also as silver. You won't understand this data. Okay, so I won't take you through, but just look at this breakout. Moment we invested, we made money. Okay, so there was profit made on silver. Okay, on basis of knowing that it's going to buy. So I bought in 4 quantities and then I made a profit of 24,000. Even in currency market, now this was what I took you: zinc, copper, gold, aluminium, etc. Those are all commodity markets and commodity derivatives. Okay, that's a basis of certain studies and constant reading you can make profits. Now when I come about currencies, now in currency also you can make money. Now currency, this was buying, this is currency futures that I traded on. Okay, so you can make profit, but you need to have knowledge and reading. Now when I talk about calls and puts, call is whenever you're bullish on a stock, whenever you're feeling that the market price will go higher, you can buy, and whenever you're bearish, you feel it is going to go down, you can take a put position. Now in Nifty also I had taken, so this was the gain I had made. This was a call in the call option. Again another trade was there in which on the put I had made money. Now this was still simple calls and puts, but having option strategies, like you have strangle, you have iron butterfly, you have iron corridor. All these are option strategies in also in which I deal. Okay, so strangle is where you buy a call and a put together, and one of the rare cases where you can make profit in both call and put together. So this was the trade. Okay, so I made profit not only on the call but also on the put option. Now this is a very rare scenario where a person can make profit on both call and put, and at the same time I'd also made profit in silver. So these are all futures and this was in options that I traded in. Now the question is, why am I telling you this? Because many a times people like to invest into the stock market without the necessary learning that is there, without the necessary reading that is there. To make money in stock markets or in options or in derivatives, you need to be well read and well educated before dealing into the stocks. Okay, so first you learn and then you remove the L. Why? Because everywhere you will see people telling you good things about the stock markets, but let me tell you, even the dark side of the stock market, the dark side, the side which many people don't educate you about. Over 90% of the retail traders lose their capital in 6 months. So 90% of the traders, retail traders, lose their capital in 6 months. So you must have heard so many people telling you about that they've lost the money. Stock market is gambling. Stock market, you think they have the knowledge, you think they know what is PB ratio, you think they know what is PE ratio, you think what they know PEG ratio, you know they must have studied the fundamentals of the company, technicals of the companies, absolutely nothing, and they want to jump into the stock markets. Now when you do that, there is a good chance that you might lose the money to the 10% who are making money. Now this, when you're 90% are losing, that means whatever wealth this 90% are losing, they are going to this 10%. This 10% could be institutional traders, could be well-disciplined traders who are making money into the stock markets. So your objective is to take a leap from the 90% to the 10%. So I will be telling you how definite, in a very definite way also, how you can earn money in the stock markets. So just stay tuned. Now, even the reverse, when I was telling you all the profit scenarios and how you would have gained money, let me show you the other side of the stock market also. If you had invested 1 lakh rupees in Idea in 2018, you would have only 6,000 left today. Okay, so even there are some wealth destroyers in the stock markets. Yes Bank, the price was high was 394. At the high was, and then the price fell to 13. Okay, then same way 100 became 8, 600 became 5, 500 became 27, 700 became 2 rupees, 400 became 5 rupees. So there are some wealth destroyers in the stock markets as well, and there are a multiple. Here, if you had invested in quality, you would have lost 92% of the capital. Here, 82%, here 68% of the capital lost into the market. So people try to actively trade, okay, and they tend to lose the money. So losses are there, which really test your emotions as well. Now, when at the beginning you were super excited that you are going to invest into the stock markets, but soon, knowing both the sides of the coin, you know that where there are profits, there are also losses. Okay, and now the question is, what do you do? Okay, and the answer is because you can even lose your entire capital into the stock markets. Now, if you are a person who don't have much risk appetite, you cannot afford to lose the money, you want a decent, well-balanced return with limited risk, you can take a little risk to get that little reward. Okay, if you don't have any risk appetite, then how can you start your investments? If you do not have the time to go and learn the stock markets from scratch, to invest your time in reading, updating yourself and getting that level of knowledge that is needed to earn money, then how do you start your investments? Answer is, you can still start your investments and still make the money. Your answer is none other than mutual funds. So for a retail investor who does not have much knowledge, who does not have the time to track the stocks, who does not have the necessary tools to make the analysis, should not invest in stock markets directly, but should invest in the stock markets through mutual funds. So mutual funds ही सही है, and mutual funds is the key to making long-term return in the stock markets for retail investors. Now question is, what are mutual funds and how does it work? Let's say if this is you, a retail investor. You go in the stock markets, get all pumped up, join in certain Telegram groups, certain WhatsApp groups, certain tips you get from your friends, and you invest money in the stock markets and start trading. What do you think? You will make a return or you will make profit? The chances are you would lose your capital, okay, 20%, 30%, etc. As we've seen, 90% of investors, of retail investors, lose the money in the stock market. So they lose the money. Therefore, if you don't want to lose, then what do? What you can do is, you do not invest directly into the stock market. So the investor should not go directly into the stock markets. Since you're a beginner, what you should do, you should give your money to an expert. This expert would be nothing but a mutual fund. You give your money to a mutual fund which is consisting of an expert in it, who is a fund expert, who is a investment expert. You give it to him and then he invests into the stock markets. Now when an expert invests into the market, considering all the principles and everything, there is a chance that you might get a good return. Yes or no? That return will then be passed on to the investor. So it is possible that an investor, now we see mutual funds normally get a return of 20%. They can return the profits to the investors. 1% he can keep as his investment advice. A mutual fund can keep for all of this as an expense ratio, and 90% return he does. So a retail investor would definitely prefer investing in the stock markets through mutual funds. Now, if I talk about who are these experts and who are these people who are making money. So if I ask you, can you name a few stock market experts in the market who you know who have been successful in investing? So the most common name would be Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. However, there is a person who Rakesh Jhunjhunwala was a student of, and who is much richer than Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, and that is Radha Krishna Damani. Radha Krishna Damani is one of the richest persons in the top 10 richest persons of India. He has a net worth of 1,30,000 crores, whereas Rakesh Jhunjhunwala has a net worth of 16,000 crores. The next superstar is your Vijay Kedia, has around 300 crores, and then you have your Parag Parekh. He's also another. There is Porenju Vilaya. There is Dolly Khanna. There are different others as well who have been very successful in the market, and Parag Parekh, let's say 500 crores is his net worth. If as an investor, I do not invest directly into the market, but I give to them and they invest into the market, don't you think there is a higher chance of return? Answer is yes. So let's take the name of Parag Parekh. Parag Parekh himself has made and set up a mutual fund. He has set up a mutual fund. So what happens is he's pooling the money from the people, okay, from you and me. We all give the money to Parag Parekh. He has set up this mutual fund, and then this mutual fund will invest into the stock market. Don't you think that this is a better way of investing rather than you investing directly in the market? Answer is yes. That is the concept of mutual fund. And we will be seeing the different mutual funds also, including Parag Parekh mutual funds and their returns. By the end of the video, you will know what all is mutual funds, how to select the mutual funds, and which are the top mutual funds in India today. Now, concept of mutual fund, how does it work? So the investors give the money to the fund manager or the mutual fund. So you give it to the mutual fund, which consists of a fund manager, fund market expert. He will choose the securities. He would know exactly which is the next multi-bagger. He would invest there. Then he would pass on the returns to you. That's how the investors earn in the mutual funds. So are the mutual funds investors directly investing in stock markets? Answer is no. They give it to mutual funds. The investors give the money to mutual funds, which are handled by experts, and then it is further invested into the security market. Since it is experts investing, the probability of gains is much higher. Now, if I talk about the history of mutual funds in India, so mutual funds was first set up in 1963 with the formation of the Unit Trust of India, okay, as an initiative by the Government of India and the Reserve Bank of Finance. Following that, in 1987, the second mutual fund was set up, which was your SBI mutual fund, which was the first non-UTI mutual fund in India. So first one was UTI, second was SBI. And following that, there have been multiple mutual funds launched, and today there are around 44 mutual fund houses in India operating in India. So at present, there are approximately 44 mutual fund or AMCs in India. Now, whenever you go to invest in a mutual fund, okay, so now we know that going directly in the market is not that safe. It is a bit risky. So you would want to play it safe and invest in a mutual fund. Whenever we begin to now analyze the mutual funds in India, first we need to know few terms before we start our part understanding mutual funds. First, when you must have heard large cap, mid caps and small caps. What are they? So let's say if the market cap of that company, market capitalization of the company is 20,000 crores and upwards, it will be considered to be a large cap. If it has 5,000 to 20,000 crores, it is called as a mid cap. And if it has around 1 crore to 5,000, means it is up to 5,000 crores, it will be called as a small cap. 5,000 to 20 is mid cap, and beyond that is a large cap. So can you tell me Reliance Industries, where will it fall? Reliance Industries, it would obviously fall in large cap. Tata's, TCS, where will it fall? So again, it will fall under large cap because its value is much more than 20,000 crores. Now, mutual funds generally offer you that where do you want to invest. So mutual fund company is there. So they would be, these funds would have schemes asking that do you want to invest in small cap, mid cap or large cap. Now when you go in large cap, obviously there is a risk reward. Risk is very high, but the chances of reward is also very high. You might double up your money, but also lose your money. Mid caps have moderate risk and large cap has least risk. So you know that Tatas will not crash and will not shut down, but the return will also be, so the lesser the risk, so risk and reward go hand in hand. So the larger the risk, greater will be the expected reward. If you lower your risk, then lower reward also you will get return. Okay. So considering your risk appetite, you can choose where do you want to go. However, mutual funds have some schemes which are called as multi-cap. They are called as multi-cap or flexi-cap, where you give the money to the mutual fund and you tell them wherever you want to invest, invest. You can invest wherever you want, but provide me a good return. Now we are going to see some of the best mutual funds in India, okay, and the high performing mutual funds. This is just on the basis of their past records. We are just putting it down, just place them, and the purpose is for analyzing them. So you have Canara Robeco, you have Parag Parikh. You remember the expert that I had spoken about, Parag Parikh, Mirae Asset Fund, Axis, etc. Now what happens? You have to see, first of all, this is the mutual fund. You have to see the category in which they are investing. Whether they are investing in large cap, whether they are investing in small cap, large and mid cap. Flexi cap means they can invest wherever they want. And the other one is your equity linked tax saver schemes, etc. So this is mostly for saving tax. So if we see the returns, let's see the 5-year returns. So almost all of them are good. Okay. This is giving 28%, 3 years return. This is giving you this much percent return. However, simply deciding on the basis of return and not looking at the risk is a wrong analysis. You have to see both together. So if this is giving you 28% in small cap, but this one, Canara Robeco, is a blue chip fund which is investing only in large cap, is giving me 22%. Then maybe this is better because this is taking less risk and giving me standard return. This is by taking more risk. So let's analyze a few stocks and mutual funds to understand the concept properly. Okay. So firstly, we are talking of Parag Parikh long-term equity fund. So we have to see who is the fund manager. Parag Parikh mutual fund, who is the fund manager, because this is the most important guy who you need to see. You can check his past trend, you can see how much gain he is making, etc. So we can say the main is Rajiv Thakkar. You can research on him, you can see how, what is his past performance, etc. When it was launched in 2003, its NAV currently is 37 rupees. What is NAV? It is a net asset value. It gives you, like how you have companies have a share price. This is like a share price of a mutual fund. So there is a formula which we'll see later how do you calculate, but for now you can remember it's just like a share price. So you buy. So maybe the NAV at the launch date might be 10. It has now gone to 37. You can go ahead and buy if you feel that it might go much higher. Then this is the first term that you needed to know. The price of a mutual fund will be denoted in your NAV. Second important term you need to see is your AUM, assets under management. How much money have they raised? How much investments do they have? How much assets does this have? So the higher the assets, the better it is, because it signifies that they have huge money. They must have incorporated better tools, better fund managers, etc. So they have around 6,000 crores. Expense ratio. Now obviously mutual fund will, whatever return they earn, they would obviously deduct some expense for them, for paying the fund managers, for paying the operating costs such as rent, marketing expenses, various professionals, etc. So they keep it, the expense ratio as 1%. So it will differ from fund to fund. Lesser the expense ratio, the better it is for the investor, because it's running at a lesser expense. So expense ratio is what the mutual fund is deducting from the return from your NAV. Okay, so let's say if I had invested at 37, okay, and now it has become 38, but from that 38 I have to know that certain expenses would be deducted continually. So the lesser the expense ratio, the better it is. So there is a different method also. How do you calculate the expense method? That we'll see. How much SIP can you do per month? You can keep investing here. The risk, level of risk is important to be seen. Then comes the exit load. Now what is in mutual fund? There is a term called as entry and exit load. Now entry load is when you buy the scrip, you have to pay certain brokerage. Exit load is when you sell the mutual fund, that time a certain charge will be deducted. So it is a sales charge. So whenever I buy, certain will be deducted. It's your entry load. Whenever you enter into the fund, you have to pay a certain expense. Whenever you exit, you have to pay the exit load. Entry load was 2.25% in somewhere in 2009. It has been stopped by SEBI now. Entry loads are no longer there. There are exit loads, and that too conditional exit load. We'll see what it is. So entry load you will not find on any mutual fund now, but you will find exit loads. That is whenever you want to sell your scrip, sell your units, that time certain charges will be deducted from it. That's called as an exit load or brokerage. 2% if they are redeemed within 365 days. So 2% will be deducted. 1% will redeem after 365 days. So they've given you certain conditions that within 1 year, if you sell off your units, then we will levy entry load. Otherwise, we will not levy. So it depends what are the exit loads that they're going to charge. Now this again comes important to know their holdings. What is a Parag Parikh long-term equity fund holding? So you'll have to see their holdings. So they have, it's like they've diversified in large cap, mid cap and small cap. So this is the rating, the agency. So every mutual fund gets a rating also. So on basis of that, it gives a guidance to the investors to understand the fundamentals of the mutual fund. That is pretty good. Now let's look at its performance. If we see the performance of this mutual fund, the annual return is giving 33, 24, 20, all these returns. Whereas the category in which it operates, that is its competitors, they are giving only 20, 15, 6. This is the important year to be seen, where everyone else gave a very bad return. It managed to give a 15% return. So it shows that it's a good mutual fund to invest in. Now we're going to see some of its holding also. Fund manager, I told you, Rajiv Thakkar. Mutual fund, any mutual fund, you can go ahead and find its holdings, where all are they holding as well. So Parag Parikh Flexi Cap Mutual Fund is not only investing in India, but it also has investments abroad. So it has invested in Alphabet, it has invested in Facebook, it has invested in Amazon. Remember at the beginning of the video, I showed you that investing in Apple would have been a very good decision because it gave such a big return. You as an investor could not reach Apple stocks, but if you invest in a mutual fund which invests abroad also, you can get that benefit. So you can go to Parag Parikh Flexi Cap, you can buy, it has holdings abroad also. We'll see few other stocks also which have international holdings. So these are its holdings. If you like, you can invest in it. And you see the returns also we've seen compared to its category average. Then next we had seen similar facts you have to study about other mutual funds also. Who are the fund managers? What is the assets under management? So it's a smaller fund. It has only 1000 crore assets with them. Expense ratio is lower. Risk is high. It has investments primarily in large cap. We can compare it with the category average. and we can see the CRISIL rank. We can see its holdings also, where all they have invested. So most of it is invested in HDFC Bank, Infosys, Bajaj Finance. So these are the holdings of the mutual funds. Then I come to Mirae Assets. Again, I can see the details. I can see where all they have invested. But if you see, most of the mutual funds invest in HDFC Bank, Infosys, etc. Okay. If I see Axis Blue Chip Fund also. So again, it's one of the biggest mutual funds. It has a assets under management, AUM. Bigger, I told you, is better, is 22,000 crores. It's a huge fund. Okay. The risk is moderately high. Expense ratio is also extremely low. So very good sign for an investor that they are not having much expenses as compared to the NAV. Exit load, if you want to exit, so 1% is levied if you try to exit within 12 months. So after 12 months, it won't be there anything. No exit load is there. Then you can see the holdings, mostly in large cap. Can you tell me why? Now, obviously, this is a blue chip fund, so it primarily focuses on blue chips. Secondly, having such a huge amount of AUM, even the fund manager Shreyash will think twice and thrice to make it a risky fund, because they cannot risk it too much. So they have had a good return as well. Axis Blue Chip Fund. You can see its holdings also, where all it is there. Most of them will have an Infosys, HDFC Bank, Bajaj Finance. These are some TCS, the Maruti Suzuki, Reliance. So you can come to know their holdings as well. Okay. Now, if you want to get the benefits of investing in international funds, you can even find the best mutual funds which invest abroad. Now, what are international mutual funds? They invest in non-domestic security market. For example, if it's in India, it won't invest in, if it's a mutual fund of India, it will not invest in India. It is an international fund, mutual fund. It will invest in international markets. So it can invest in China, it can invest in UK, US, etc. Okay, so let me show you how do you find any mutual fund, etc. Okay, and how do you find the holdings. Any mutual fund you want, you can go ahead and find it. So you go to your moneycontrol.com. So you go to moneycontrol.com, then you will see this section of mutual fund. You have to click on that. You have to click on that and become search any mutual fund. So whichever mutual fund you want, you can search it. And below also they've given you a few mutual fund on basis of the cap. Like large cap invest in large, I told you, like 20,000 crores and above. So large cap mutual funds are there. You can see this direct, regular. I'll tell you what is a direct and regular also. Then comes multi-cap. It can invest in all the three caps. Large cap and mid cap will not invest in small cap. Mid cap will invest only in mid cap. Small cap is, will invest in small caps only, etc. Depending on what they say. Let's say I want to invest in a mutual fund. I can research any mutual fund I want. Let's say I want to invest in Motilal or in US market, in NASDAQ. So international mutual fund I'm checking. Let's see if I have your. Okay. So these are all the mutual funds that follow the NASDAQ and invest in the United States. So if I have to see Motilal Oswal, you have Kotak, you have ICICI Prudential. If I go in any one of them, let's say I go in Motilal Oswal 100 NASDAQ shares. Okay. So the details are put up here, that the scheme is giving a return of 31%, whereas Nifty in India is giving a return of 26%. If you go on to see the returns, they've given a good amount of returns, around 20 to 30. That's average returns. If I further go to see what all stocks are there in their portfolio, majority of them Okay, almost 99.9% is in foreign equity holdings, and just companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, etc. So if you feel that you want to invest and in America, you can go ahead and go for funds like these. Now, when we've seen there are direct funds and there are regular funds. What is it? So the mutual funds could either be regular funds or it could be direct funds. Let's understand which is this, and you need to tell me which one would you choose. In regular fund, you are the investor, and this is the mutual fund company called as AMC, Asset Management Company. You interact with the AMC with the help of a distributor. So the units are sold to you with the help of a distributor. Whereas in direct plan, you go directly to the AMC and buy and sell the units. Now, can you tell me which is better? Since there is the distributor, obviously the cost would be higher because you have a distributor involved. Therefore, in regular plans, the expense ratio, the expense of the mutual fund is relatively higher. Now, what is it exactly and who opt for regular plans? Firstly, direct mutual funds are offered, the units are directly offered by the AMC. There is no involvement of third party agents like brokers and distributors. Okay. Now, in regular plans, you are bought through an intermediary. Now, normally the people who don't have knowledge about mutual funds, mutual funds are sold through brokers, distributors who identify their needs, who explain to you, and accordingly to your needs, age factor, various factors, would suggest you a mutual fund and you would buy. So then intermediary gets involved. However, if you know where exactly you want to go and which kind of mutual fund you need to buy, you can directly go and buy the direct plan. So if you have to take an example why direct plans are better, we are comparing Axis Blue Chip Mutual Fund, the regular plan, and the direct plan. You invest 10,000 rupees continuously for around 10 years. The return is 29 lakhs in the regular plan, but in the direct plan you get a much higher return. That's 31 lakhs. So you have lost this difference between these two is the commission that you've lost due to the distributor commission or the broker commission. So therefore, opting for regular plans is much better for you. Now, question is why you should opt for a mutual fund at all. Now, even in the times of COVID where the market had fallen, you see the mutual funds, they had actually given positive returns. Canara Robeco had given, the large cap category had given 23%. The small cap category, if you go to see, had given 49% returns. Now, where market was in negative, certain stocks must be up. So these gave a positive return. Okay, Mirae Mutual Fund, they had given very, very good returns. You see around 20-30 returns is very good. So obviously when experts are, riding your money, you can be rest assured it is in safe hands. Now question is, how do you choose a mutual fund? As I told you, you don't have to go through the regular plans because there is a distributor involved, distributor commission that will be given. You can go for direct plans, but for direct plans, you need some sort of knowledge which plan to choose. So mutual fund or any investment for that matter, you need to look the money that you are investing. What is your risk tolerance? If you're a younger person, your risk tolerance will be high, but considering your age factor, your responsibilities that you have, your risk tolerance will vary, or basic nature of a person. Time horizon. How long can you keep your money invested? If you don't mind to invest your money, let's say if I'm investing every month 1,000 rupees and I don't really care for it, I will directly look at a time of my retirement, then it's very good to go for growth plans. However, if I have a certain amount of funds that I'm investing the entire fund in the stock market or in the mutual fund, in such cases, I would not go for growth plan. I would go for liquidity funds. Liquid funds can be anytime. They invest in much safer investment avenues such as bonds, certain kind of government securities, etc., which are safe. And investment objective. So what is your investment objective? Whether it is a growth, whether it is capital protection, etc. Then accordingly you can determine. Now normally while you select a mutual fund, you should see how was its performance in the past from other factors. For benchmarks are basically you peg it against Nifty, you peg it against certain other things, you peg it against its competitors and see how it is performing. As we had seen, you could do analysis very easily as compared to others. You see the consistency over a longer period of time will be better. Fund manager, who is he, what is his past experience, what is the mutual fund company, which is called as an asset management company's track record. This is a very important factor. Assets under management, how much money and assets and securities do they have, are they managing? And lastly, the expense ratio. How much is a mutual fund going to charge for all its expenses? The lesser the expense, the better it is for the investor. Okay, if I have to understand what is an expense ratio is the maintenance charge that a mutual fund is levying for managing your money. Okay, because mutual fund would incur various costs such as fees of the fund managers, certain kind of employee charges, advertising cost, your rent, etc. Now this expense ratio that the mutual fund is deducting will be used for various paying of listing fees, depository fees, service taxes, distributor expenses, assets expenses, all the expenses and fees and salaries paid to all the intermediaries, etc. So that is what it is used. Always it is disclosed, the NAV is disclosed after deducting the expenses. Common sense, the net asset value is a net figure that you will get in hand. The coming of advantages and disadvantages of investing in a mutual fund. Firstly, advantages: you are handled by a professional who knows exactly what he is doing and he's a market expert. Diversification. You, let's say, are investing in a stock and let's say the stock crashes, you will lose your entire money. But in mutual funds, what happens is they don't invest in one stock, they invest in various they create a diversified portfolio. When I say diversified portfolio means what? You'll always see a mutual fund will not invest only in one company. They would instead diversify their income, maybe in IT, banking, pharma, FMCG, other sectors. So keeping a diversified portfolio really helps, because if there is a change in law in the banking regulations, it wouldn't, your other sectors still be protected. So even if there is a minus 20% return year but a plus 20% return year, you will be averaged out. So diversification in sectors, in companies really is helpful. Second, let's take another example. Let's say you have limited capital. Let's say you have rupees 20,000 in hand. Okay, you have 20,000 capital that you want to invest in the market. I tell you that the MRF price is going to double, or Page Industries is going to double, or Honeywell is going to double. Tell me one thing, can you invest in the stock after seeing its price? Answer is, your capital is only so low that you cannot invest into this money and you cannot get the benefits of return. However, a mutual fund will pool the money, 20,000 from all these people, and they can invest into these companies which normally would be inaccessible to you, because the market price of these companies itself is very high. And these are some of the highest stock prices in the India: MRF, Honeywell, Page Industries, Shree, 3M, etc. Nestle. Diversification, then you have benefits of convenient administration. The investor doesn't have to do any kind of paperwork, handle share certificates, nothing. Everything is managed by the mutual fund. We've seen, as compared to retail investors, mutual fund obviously is any day better. It is available at lesser cost because of the benefits of economies of scale and other benefits. Liquidity. Now, what is liquidity? At any point you want, you can go ahead and stop your investments. You can go ahead and redeem your investments, receive the money, etc. So it's not that you are always locked in with your funds. You can invest in certain places where you can withdraw whenever you need. Transparency. Now it's extremely transparent. You know exactly where all are you holding and where is the investment strategy. Details about the everything is given up. Okay. Even you feel that there are certain sectors which you want to invest in future. Can you tell me few stocks which or sectors which you think will boom in future? So we have AI, artificial intelligence companies like Tata Elxsi, something which I have invested, Happiest Minds, very good AI stocks. 5G network, okay, so you have Reliance that would come in, SmartLink, Tejas, all of them. These are all future related stocks. Electronic vehicles, Amraja Battery, superb stock. Okay, all of this. You even have Tata Motors, digital, so Info Edge, IRCTC, CDSL. Now these are all technology stocks for the future. So what happens if you want to invest into these stocks? You should always diversify your portfolio, which generally a mutual fund would do. So you need to find the mutual fund scheme which really targets the technology sector, which targets the future, and you can then accordingly invest. If you go to see, more or less, being employed, a fund manager doesn't take in too much risk. They always resort to some evergreen stocks, to some stocks which we know it is going to be there forever, like your Reliance, your Tatas, okay, your HDFC Bank, your SBI, ICICI, Infosys, and these are the companies which are mostly held by mutual fund managers. So these are the companies which generally they invest, and you see these are all stable companies. Okay, now coming to a topic such as systematic investment plans, especially when mutual funds are involved. I believe some of you all or your parents or your families must be having a SIP in place. Today we'll understand what is it good to invest in SIP, etc. Now my personal recommendation for all of y'all, you need to pause and understand this very well. You all need to have a SIP in place. Now what is a systematic investment plan? Let's see. Firstly, every month, okay, a systematic approach is done to investment, where a certain amount of funds, maybe 1,000, 2,000, you decide the amount, is deducted from your account and it is invested into the markets. So it goes to the mutual fund and the mutual fund will then further invest into the market. Now what happens with investing in SIP? First of all, it makes you a disciplined investor. You can start as low as 500 rupees. You can invest in SIP easily. You get the benefits of compound interest, which I will show you what's the benefit over the period of time, and it helps to manage market volatility. For example, if I invest on 23rd and let's say on 24th market crashed, so I'd be extremely sad. Okay, but if I invest every month, let's say Jan, Feb, March, so it averages out and the return also averages out, which is good for investment point of view. Now let's understand how SIP helps and the power of compounding. Now firstly, compound interest is, according to Albert Einstein, the 8th wonder of the world, and actually if you go to see and understand it, it is really good. Let me understand and how you can use it to the benefit of your investment in your finance. Okay, so 10% growth in 25 years is how much? It is not 250%, it is 1000%. Why? Because 10% growth, okay, on 100 is rupees 10, but in the next year the return will not be on rupees 10, it will be on 100 and the interest also. Here the interest also earns interest for you. So it continuously keeps growing over a period of time, but whatever growth you get, that is further reinvested into the markets, which will again give you that return. So your return potential increases. Now let's understand about SIP and what happens. Some of the shocking and figures are there in front of you. Let's see. Firstly, if you would have, we are assuming you're starting a SIP of 5,000 rupees with a return of 15% yearly return, CAGR, which they call it, compounded annualized growth. That is, every year it is growing by 15%, which is an average return that the stock market grows at. At the end of 5 years, you will have 5 lakh rupees. At the end of 25 years, you're going to have almost 38 CR. Imagine investing 5,000 rupees for 25 years at 15% growth rate. You make how much? 1.25 crores, 38 crores. Therefore, it makes sense to invest for long term and in SIP. Even this, another way of wealth creation is 15,000 rupees for 15 years. With 15% return, you get 1 crore in hand. But 15,000 rupees for 30 years, you get at 15%, you get 10 crores. So this is not a very difficult thing. It shows that time and not timing is important for wealth creation. So just let your money grow, and that will over a period of time grant you, or you will be able to amass huge amount of wealth. Now let's say some people want to invest for their kids. Okay, this is some of the financial disciplines that you should follow. Let's say open an account moment the child is born. You make with 1 lakh popular brokerage account and put rupees 5,000 for 21 years. Okay, every month you're putting 5,000 rupees. At the age of 21st birthday, he will have 1 crore in his account. Okay, and if you want to verify this, you can do that also. Let's see. I go to SIP calculator. Now this is something again I would recommend you can try it for yourself. Okay, so let's say I'm making an SIP of 1,000. Okay, a very small figure, and at let's say a 15% interest rate. And let's say I'm taking it a number of years. I invest for 30 years. Moment the child is born, he will have 70 lakh rupees with him. Just 1,000 a month. If I can literally double the amount, okay, let's say I keep 3,000 for him. He will have 2 crore rupees in his account. Can you beat that? 3,000 rupees per month is not a very difficult amount. Just keeping it aside in mutual funds, which gives you at least 15% return, which generally they do give. You will have 2 crores in your account. Unbelievable. Check it out for yourself. But that's what you should do, and most parents do that. Moment the child is born, they start a SIP in the child's name, and they see that when the child is 18 years, 25 years, he can finance his education abroad and other factors too. Okay, now whenever someone is investing in mutual funds, the structure of mutual fund we'll be seeing and the investment objectives. Investment objectives could either be growth or it could be regular income. For example, if you are young and you want growth, you would go in growth oriented mutual funds, which are mostly the case. But let's say if you are a senior citizen and you can't really risk your capital at all, and you have a very low risk appetite and you require regular income, so you can go for income based scheme which provide you fixed income. They provide you fixed income. These could be companies which are high dividend paying companies, or they will invest in fixed income securities like FD kind of other securities which give you a little higher returns. Then the structure we'll be seeing your open-ended structures and your close-ended structures. So mutual funds could either be open-ended or close-ended. Okay, so we'll be understanding what are open-ended mutual funds and close-ended mutual funds. Firstly, let me tell you, most of the mutual funds are open-ended in nature. Okay, what are open-ended? Let's understand. Okay, so yeah, so open-ended mutual fund, let's say here there is an investor. He will buy the scripts or the units of the mutual fund from the mutual fund company, which is called as the asset management company. So if he wants to buy also, he will go to the mutual fund company, and if he wants to sell, he will also go to the AMC. Now here there is no time horizon, nothing. Whenever you want, so mostly I have an open-ended mutual fund. I just buy it. When I want to exit, I'll exit it. The mutual fund company will redeem the units, will repay me whatever capital is there. So maybe I have bought it at 10 and the price went to 15, I can go and sell it. So the mutual fund will redeem it for me and pay it for me. So because of this, the corpus of the mutual fund, since they are paying me the units, it is variable. It will vary. So when many people are coming to buy, they are paying the mutual fund, the corpus will increase. When many people have come to sell off their units, then the corpus will go down. Now so here the liquidity is high, since the mutual fund is standing there, it's highly liquid, since the mutual fund company itself is ready to redeem. Whereas in close-ended, what happens, the mutual fund gives a lock-in period. They declare a lock-in. Let's say they are declaring a lock-in of 3 years. So within 3 years, you can't sell it to the mutual fund. So it's locked in, it's closed. So the mutual fund has sold the units to you, and this is the investor, has sold the units to you, and it's locked for a period of 3 years. Only after 3 years, your initial capital will be redeemed. So let's say you had invested rupees 10. This redemption or repayment will happen only after lock-in period. So it is nothing but, have you seen like an FD? When you invest in the FD, can you remove it? No, it's locked in, it's closed till the maturity period. Same way, you can open a FD kind of a thing. It's not FD exactly, but it's closed like an FD. You can't just redeem it whenever you want. That's why it's called as this. Closed. Now what happens if the investor needs money? Okay, if the investor needs money during the lock-in period, what do we do? Can he go to the mutual fund? Mutual fund will say, we won't help you. So we have put a system in place where he can sell off his stake. That is, we listed on the stock exchange. We list. So these are listed. So he'll have to find another investor. He will have to find, or maybe the software will track him to another investor. So if he's selling, there could be another investor who will buy. So these close-ended funds are listed on the stock exchange so that the investor can sell off his stake during the lock-in period. Now obviously the NAV would be, let's say 12. Let's say for example, he had bought it at 10. Currently the NAV is 12. However, the market price could either be 15, it could be 12, or it could be 10. What is it exactly? Let's say he bought it at 10 rupees, so this is his cost price. NAV, let's say it is locked in for 3 years. After 1 year, NAV is displayed every day. Every day the NAV is displayed. So let's say this is a 1 year later, the NAV is 12. Now this guy needs money. So he's trying to sell off his money. He knows it is worth 12, but he needs to liquidate quickly. So even he's ready to sell it at 10 rupees. Sometimes this, what is of 12 rupees, can even be bought at 15, because people feel that the future price must be much higher. that this mutual fund might do. So just like the stock markets, it's not necessarily that the book price, the book value is always the market price, right or wrong? So whenever you are listed, the listing price will be different from the book value. It depends on the market sentiments, if the market is bullish or bearish on the stock, or if it is fairly valued. Clear? So what is open-ended mutual funds? First we are seeing what are close-ended mutual funds. So close-ended mutual funds, they have a fixed maturity date like a FD. The units are issued once at the time of the open offer, initial offer, it is issued once, and now it will be redeemed only on the maturity date. So moment I sell these units to you, I will take back the units from you and give you the price only on the maturity date. Now obviously, since you would want to sell it in between, what if you want to sell it? So we mandatorily list these things to provide an exit route before the maturity date. Okay. The units, since we know it is sold only at the initial stage, these units are closed. No fresh units can be sold or redeemed until the maturity date. Unlike in open, investors cannot buy the units of unlike in open-ended, investors cannot buy the units of a close-ended after the NFO. So it's a new fund offer. So moment, it's like an IPO, what mutual fund brings in. So how we bring in IPOs, we launch a few units for share market. Same thing, mutual funds, they call it as NFO, new fund offer. New fund offer offered 10,000 units. So 10,000 units will be till the very maturity. No fresh units will be issued or redeemed. Trading will go on with respect to this. This means that new investors cannot enter. So suppose you get a friend along and you say that, buy this. It's not possible. New units will not be issued. Nor existing units can exit till the scheme. However, to exit it, they cannot exit it with the help of the mutual fund. They will have to sell it through the stock exchange. So a closed mutual fund scheme is where your investment is locked in for a specific period of time. You can subscribe to the close-ended only during the new fund offer, that is the initial period, and redeem it only when the lock-in period is over. Now what is open-ended schemes? Now open-ended is the most common, most common in India. You can enter whenever you want, you can exit whenever you want. These are not listed. You directly buy from the mutual fund, you sell it to the mutual fund. Are always open to investment and redemption. So I get a friend along, I say he also wants, please give him also 2 units. So the mutual fund will issue 2 units to him. After 2 days, we both come and we say that we want to sell off our units. The mutual fund will, at whatever NAV is there, the price is there, they will give us and we will leave. So these are not required only to be listed because mutual fund is standing as a buyer or a seller. Okay. Now we'll be seeing the structure of a mutual fund. The person who sets up or contemplates to start a mutual fund, the person who starts the mutual fund is called as a sponsor. So the sponsor is a person who is the promoter of a mutual fund or a person who sets up the mutual fund. The very first thing he would do is he would set up a trust, a mutual fund trust. He would incorporate the trust under the Indian Trust Act. The trust is managed by trustees. Trustees' duty is to ensure that the unit holders, the investors' interest is protected. Once the trust is made, then a company will be formed called as a asset management company or AMC. Now the asset management company will manage the assets of the mutual fund, whatever money will be received, how it will be spent, launching of the schemes, everything is about the asset management company. This asset management company would be formed under the Companies Act 2013. it is where company secretaries are appointed, the fund managers are appointed, everyone, the schemes are launched, everything happens under the asset management company. So the assets are basically the funds that the mutual fund will be raising, and where it would be investing, all the returns, everything is managed by the AMC. Now, during the process, when the mutual fund is in the process of the business, there is possible that many persons transfer their units, or the mutual fund is issuing the units, issue and transfer. To manage the issue and transfer of securities, a registrar and share transfer agents are appointed. Registrar and share transfer agent. The work of these are like an intermediary facilitator to help you sell your shares, to sell your units. So whenever the AMC is issuing the units, you need someone who will allot it. You need a professional body. They are the RTAs. So very famous of them are CAMS, is your Carvi, etc. So these help you in transfer and purchase of securities. Lastly, whenever the mutual fund is dealing in certain physical assets such as gold, land, certain kind of physical papers, those will be kept in the custody of a custodian. So a custodian is a person who has a custody of something. Here he would have the custodian would have the custody of all those things that the mutual funds have in physical form. So if we just take an overview, a mutual fund trust is set up first, which objective, there are trustees who will see that the AMC is working properly, that this thing goes on properly, that the investors invest in the AMC, investments are made and the returns are made properly. So this entire aspect will be overseen by the mutual fund trust and its trustees. Can you tell me, whenever the transfers are made, okay, these investors transfer to another person or the issue is made to the investors, which intermediary will be connecting with this, will be handling this? It is your RTAs. Who is the person who has set up the entire concept of mutual fund and set up the mutual fund? That is called as a sponsor. And lastly, the custodian. Whenever any kind of bonds, stock, golds, real estate, all those physical assets are there, paperwork is there, it is all handled by the custodian. Okay, so we see first is the sponsor, he forms the trust, then you have your trustees. The trustees will ensure that you form the asset management company under the Companies Act 2013, and the AMC will launch the schemes to the investors. So I hope the structure of the mutual fund is clear. So if we see, a sponsor is basically the promoter of a mutual fund, and we always want that whoever is a sponsor who's setting up the fund, the mutual fund, we want him to keep his money invested. It is called as a skin in the game, or whatever is going on, even his money should be at stake. So when I say skin in the game means what? Even he should be invested, so that if there is a loss of the mutual fund, even the promoter loses his money. So the sponsor, as per the mutual fund laws, has to contribute at least 40% to the net worth of the asset management company. So 40% of the net worth of the asset management company has to come from the sponsor. So we can say he himself has to invest a lot. So we can say it's a skin in the game, or that his head is on stake, his money is on stake. Trustees, main job of the trustee is to protect the investors' money. What is the asset management company? It is the trustee appoints the asset management company, we saw, to manage the investors' money, its assets. They enter into a investment management agreement. Okay, so certain terms and conditions will be written on how the AMC will manage the investments, etc. What is the procedure to launch the scheme? What will be the initial amount? How will be operations be? What will be the fees charged by them, etc. Custodians, I told you. So AMC buys different kinds of securities such as shares, bonds, golds. Now, it is not kept, all of these physical assets are not kept with the trust. Instead, all of this is kept with the custodian. Registrar share transfer agents, we've seen, their main job is how they can sell the units, etc. If someone wants to redeem it, etc. Okay. Now coming to the offer document, any mutual fund you want to invest in, any scheme you want to invest in, you must have always heard they say read the offer document properly. So what is an offer document? So offer document is a document which will contain the vital details of the scheme and the fund. Okay. So they always, you must have seen this, mutual funds investment are subject to market risk. Please read the offer document carefully. So what is the offer document? Offer document will contain three parts. Okay. It's ideally two, and the third one is a summary of these two. So first it will contain the SID, that is the scheme related information. Second is statement of additional information, that is SAI, which will contain the details of the fund house. And lastly, a summary of these two, of the SID and the SI, is called as a KIM, where only the key information is shared, or key information memorandum. It's a summary of the SID and the SAI. So what is SID? In the SID, they will give you the details of the scheme. When I say the scheme means what? A mutual fund can launch multiple schemes. Okay, you can have maybe a close-ended, open-ended scheme, where what will be the tenure, what will be the minimum investment, what will be the risk factors of the scheme, what will be the investment areas, whether it's going to be equity, debt, hybrid, etc. So all of those details of the scheme will be mentioned, whether it's going to invest in domestic market, international market, all of that with respect to a scheme. There could be multiple schemes, and if you want to know details of the scheme, you can go ahead and read the SID. Then comes SAI, it gives you the details of the fund house. So the fund house would contain of the trustees, of the registrar share transfer agents, of their past track record, of the details of the sponsor, etc., of the company secretary, etc. And this would contain the highlights of those two. Now coming to one important term which is called as assets under management, or AUM. So assets under management refers, so in simple words, if the mutual fund is raising, let's say, an amount and they have got 3,000 crores. So we can say that the AUM is 3,000 crores. Now this could be invested somewhere in stocks, bonds, gold, bank deposits, etc. So its value could increase, so the AUM can increase. So what is the assets under management? In simple words, how much assets, cash and cash equivalents is the mutual fund holding. So the more the AUM it has, shows that the mutual fund is much bigger, and if it is bigger, we can believe that it is running much more efficiently, since the better fund experts would be kept, since they can hire the best. Okay, so AUM helps to build the market value of the investment firm. You come to know what is the investment value. It refers to the total pool of the sum invested, managed by the asset management company. So it will contain all the places where the mutual fund has invested, maybe the stocks, bonds, corporate bonds, cash, bank deposits. Now coming to one point which is called as the NAV, net asset value. Now NAV is just like what in a company you would get a share price. Okay, same way in a mutual fund you don't get a share price, you get NAV. You get a NAV. Okay, NAV. So the person's holding NAV is like the share price. What you call as a share, here you will call it as a units. Wherever you are the shareholder, you will be called as a unit holder. So net asset value, let's see the formula. How do you compute it? It's very simple. So let's say if the fund has the assets of 200, whereas it has liabilities of 150. So can I say the net assets is 50? And NAV shows per unit what is the price. So this is the net assets. You divide it by, okay, you take the net assets, you divide it by the total number of equity shares, or you could say the units. So let's say there are a total of 10 units. Okay, so in that case, what would be the NAV? The NAV would be rupees 5. Simply stating that there is 50 and it's going to be divided among 10 shares or share units. So we can say that per person it would be 5. So NAV, it gives you the price of 1 unit. Okay, so NAV is an important factor. Obviously, just like you have you're investing in shares, you get the share price. Similarly, even NAV is calculated. So maybe you might have invested when the NAV was 5, and now the NAV can increase to 20 rupees. So we can say you made a gain of 15 rupees gain. Okay, simple. So you will see the NAV just like you would have seen NAV at time of investment and NAV at the time of redemption, or at the time when you're selling the your NAV. So net assets divided by the total outstanding. Now how do you calculate the net assets? We'll see also. You take what is the total assets, that is the market value of all the investments, all the receivables, all other incomes, any other kind of assets. So you're taking the addition of all the assets, subtracting with all the expenses, all the payments, all the liabilities, you'll get your net assets, and then divided by the total number of units that are there. Now coming to the holding period return, it is nothing, in simple words, it is a rate of return. It is a rate of return. Rate of return, how do you calculate? If I want to just know that how much return I have made. So it is your return upon your investment. This is a simple formula for ROI, return or rate of return. For example, I had invested 100 rupees and I got a return of 20. So I can say the rate of return is 20%, or that's a holding period return. Now in mutual funds, let's say you can get returns in the form of 2 ways. You can get return in the form of 2 ways. In the stock market, etc. Maybe you can get dividend. Okay, you can get dividend. Plus, so if you have anyone who has invested in shares, they keep getting dividend, and at the same time they can get capital gains, capital appreciation. For example, their share of 30 became 100. Okay, you bought it at 30 and it became 100. So I can say the capital gain is 70, and in the process you got 10 rupees gain. Okay, so its total is 80 on an investment of, let's say you've invested 100 rupees. So then your 80% is your rate of return. Let's see what they have given. So any kind of income that you have got plus your capital gains. So this is given you your income plus your capital gains. Now what do you mean by capital gains? I had bought it for 100 and I'm selling it for 120. So can I say 20 rupees is the return? And I must have got 10 rupees separately. So we can say you get 20 gain here, 10 gain here. So you get a total of 30. And let's say you had made an investment of 100 rupees. So you come to know it is 30%. Okay, same, let's take an illustration. Calculate the holding period return for a unit holder who has bought a unit at 17.6 and received dividend of 2. So he had received dividend of 2 plus he bought it at 17.60. So this is his investment amount. And let's see what capital gains he has made. And the current price is 19. So he bought it at 17 and now it has become 19. So if you see the difference between 19.875 minus 17.60. So what does this signify? This signifies the capital gains or the capital appreciation that you've got. You will get a holding period return is 24.29%. Then coming to mutual funds. Okay, mutual funds have a certain mutual funds have load. Certain mutual funds don't have any load. Now, what does a load mean? A load means a charge or a kind of a cost. Let's see, which is your entry load and exit load. So normally, obviously, they will have a load. Load versus no load funds. A load fund is where mutual fund will charge certain expenses to you, such as sales commission. It could be a front end load, back end load, okay, or both, pay coming and going. So firstly, what does it mean? So whenever it's a commission that you're paying, it's a sales commission. Load means nothing but a sales commission. So whenever you buy and brokerage will be charged, a certain kind of commission will be charged by the mutual fund house, that is called as your front end load. One load is when you sell. Okay, when you sell, again a certain commission will be charged, which is called as your back end load. So it is possible that only mutual fund is charging only front end load, or it is charging only back end load, or the third case could be it is charging both, or the fourth case it is charging none. In India, okay, what goes on, anyone knows what kind of load is charged? So in India, front end load, that is of 2.25%, was charged, but it earlier, but in 2009 it was stopped. Front end load was stopped and now there is no front end load. There is a back end load, that is a sell load. Optional, if the mutual fund wants, they can charge a back end load subject to certain conditions. For example, if you sold a mutual fund, then the back end load is levied. So conditional could be if you sell the mutual fund within 1 year, then a back end load will be levied, otherwise it won't be levied. So in most of the mutual funds in India, a back end load is levied. That means whenever you will sell the unit, a certain commission will be charged, and when you buy the unit, no commission will be charged to the sums. So that is it for the mutual fund topic.